listen to us. I'll start again. Good morning to everyone. For those of you who have logged in and registered for this event, we welcome you to share with us your views and listen to our guest speaker today, where we're going to share some industry knowledge, particularly looking at the drone operations. My name is Munish Khurana. I work for Eurocontrol as a senior manager at business development, and I have the pleasure today to host Stephen Sutton from Flyby guys. We'll talk a bit more about Stephen in a minute, but just to give you some numbers in terms of how many of you are registered and listening to us. We've currently got a number of 275, and the registrations are still going up. So thanks for your interest, and we will do our best to keep the discussions alive and kicking and keep your interest high. Just some ground rules for those of you who have technical difficulties such as audio or video problems. Please use the chat box that you see at the bottom of your screen. That way you can talk to our IT support guys. Now, I'd very much like you to encourage you to use the Q&A button, which is right next to the chat box at the bottom of the screen, and we will use the Q&A button really for what it's meant for. Please register your questions in that Q&A. I, as your moderator, will keep an eye on that window, and I'll select questions. Hopefully we can cover all of them, but in the limited time, depending on how many we have, we'll try and do the best we can and have a discussion with Stephen to try and address those questions. So chat window for IT problems and Q&A for your questions. All right, so let's kick it off now. Let me just first set the scene and introduce Stephen. Drone operations are happening today, and most, if not all of you, would know that some industry sectors are using drone operations more than others. Some of those that are using them quite frequently are for purposes including inspections, whether they are pipeline inspections or telecom operator inspections, or at the harbors and ports and so on. Surveillance activities. I know that the local law enforcement people, such as the police and other authorities, are using them to survey areas and stuff, and also for maintenance. Not to say, but I'll let Stephen talk about later on, a lot of the drones are being used for drone shows around the world, and Flyby guys are one of the pioneering organizations doing that across the world. Now, the expectation today is that the traffic and the extent and the volume of the operations that we have today is going to increase. It's going to scale up in the future, and a lot of progress has been made so far, certainly from a top-down manner, I'd say, in terms of definition of the EU Drone Strategy 2.0, which was released in November last year, regulations that have been defined, and ongoing release of acceptable means of compliance and guidelines material. But needless to say, I think more needs to be done, more can be done, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is to improve and expedite deployment of drone services market and implementing them. Now, many challenges exist to scale up, and we will talk about those challenges from a variety of perspectives, but we will look at all these challenges from the prism of a drone operator today, because that's the focus of our discussion today. But before I go into it, I just want to set a quick scene in terms of where we think the future might lie and where we think we might have an opportunity for us to scale up. So I'll share my screen with you, and just showing you a picture, and I hope you can see it and appreciate it. This was a picture. This picture represents a piece of work that was commissioned by European Investment Bank about a year and a half to 2 years ago. I don't think it's changed dramatically, and the work was done by Atkins, a consulting firm. Clearly, what that shows is that if we just look at urban environment where we have multiple modes of transport, we have an airport, so controlled airspace, We have people living there, so high density area. So it's highly complex, highly dense. There are multiple applications that we expect the drones to conduct in future. No doubt the surveillance, inspection, and maintenance we talked about, but also delivery of drones, perhaps initially for medical purposes to try and save lives of people and to improve their day-to-day medical needs, but also in future to look at drones being used for multiple purposes, including deliveries of non-essential items as well, and so on and so forth. But I hope that you can appreciate, and we're certainly going to dive into it, is that in order to have this future that you see in the picture, that there are many challenges that we're going to face, technically, operationally, regulatory, but from a regulatory perspective, from the perspective of public perception, financial perspectives. Are we going to make money out of it or not? Because what we don't want to do is to have the entire supply chain ready for drones to start operating and it can scale up, but there are no buyers, there's no demand. That would be a shame. So with that in mind, what I'd like to do now is perhaps to give the floor to Stephen. Stephen Sutton, he's a group CEO of Flyby, guys. Now, Stephen started with a passion for drones with photography, and all good things start in a certain way, probably in the most unplanned way, and they take a shape that takes a much more planned shape later on. But after some attention to galleries and selling prints, Stephen came up with the idea, and like all good ideas, it started off with a beer in his hand down the pub with his co-founder, Chris Moore. I wouldn't go down into what they were drinking at the time, but it looks like whatever they were drinking motivated them enough to start something exciting. 5 years later, today, now they have offices in Vienna, in Dubai, and they have a headquarter in Helsinki. And the Flyby guys are thinking outside the box, or perhaps outside the drone in a box, to deliver a competitive edge to sectors that have opened up for the use of drones and provide a value in a way that no other technology can bring. Stephen, I'd like to welcome you to this webinar, and I'd like you to share with us, first of all, what your company does and how you operate. And then after that, perhaps we can have some Q&A sessions. Both, I've got some questions already, but I'd very much like people to start registering their questions in the Q&A window, and I will do my best to address those to you. So, Stephen, the floor's yours. Introduce your company and your business model to our viewers, please.
Thank you very much, Munish. Good morning, and good morning to all the attendees as well. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm obviously delighted to talk with you all about Flyby guys and what we'll be doing. Thank you for the introduction. That pretty much sums it up, of course. But if we look at where we are now compared to where we were 5 years ago, we have expanded, we have had the growth, and of course that is the most important thing. We still have a long way to go. We do focus on, okay, so I mean, the Flyby guys have two business units. So that's the way we look at it. We have two business units. One side we focus on the inspections, where we focus on the telecom inspections. So we work very, very closely with the telecom industry, and we have about 10 to 15 pilots every day out there doing inspections, and we're delivering all that data to our customers. And then we also have the drone light shows, which we also do. So we also manage that. We work with a few providers there. We work with Dronesos, the French drone light show company, and also we work with Nova Sky Stories, the US company. That all started with Intel a few years ago as well. So we started with Intel, and then Intel went, it was sold, and then went into Nova Sky Stories. So we are conducting drone operations for drone light shows all over the world. we've done operations in the Middle East, Asia, Africa, also in the EU as well. So we are very well experienced. We've got highly skilled pilots, and yeah, it's been an incredible journey, and we haven't even reached the surface yet. So we have a long way to go.
So thank you, Stephen. Would you like to share your presentation slides?
Yes, yes, I can. Yeah, I can actually share just a short presentation, which I'll just go through the company and actually introduce some of the team as well. So yeah, we are the Flyby guys. We started in Helsinki in Finland, and we have been expanding obviously as well. So you can just see some of our customers here: Telefonica, ATC Germany, SBL in Austria, and also Intel. And we have way more now. So we're working with more operators in the German regions, as well as and also in Finland. Yeah, so you can see that we are doing operations. This is just a few of the countries that we're working in, but we are actually flying and doing operations in more as well. This really helps us get more experience, how to handle certain countries, because every country is different. Every country is different how they operate in terms of, let's say, legislation, and I could go into so many different scenarios as to why it is so different. And obviously that we have learned from this as well, which I think is more let's say valuable than anything. So we have offices, as I say, in these countries in the region. I am based in Helsinki here. That's where we started. And this is the team. This is the leadership team. This is what I call the dream team. So it was myself and Chris who started the company 5 years ago. And you have Michael Mikołowski, who is the customer operations director. Michael and I used to work together in a telecom software company, actually for about 15 years. So this is why we really wanted to focus, and we brought in, these people who have the experience within the actual telecom industry. So, and this is one of the key aspects as to how to make your business successful, is you bring in the right people. You bring in the right people who focus on those sectors. Then things are a lot easier. Then we have Kai Honigschlager, who also was in technology. So myself, Kai, and Michael used to work in the same company as well. And then we have Marcus, who is also based in Austria as well. And he's running the telco business there from the Austrian office. So yeah, this is the dream team, as I say, and they're all extremely dedicated. And it's fantastic to work with these guys, because they have the same, let's say, goals as I have, or we have had from the very beginning. Some of our partners we have Above Surveying. This is a company from the UK that are doing solar inspections. So we work alongside them and we help them with the solar. That can be all over the world as well. That's also one of our partners. And as I said in the introduction, Dronisos is one of our partners as well. This is the French drone light show company. They are doing some incredible shows as well. You may have seen the show that they done in Dubai with two-manned aviation and flying around the animation. It was absolutely stunning, and it was actually a world record actually as well. So they are one of the they're one of the leading companies in drone light shows, and they have a long way to go to be the best as well. So and then we're also working with MYX. This is a software provider which we work with the telecom sector. So they are providing the platform that we gather the data and then we deliver that to our customers. This is not a very well-known company, but they are, they have a fantastic platform. They have a very, very good platform. They're very much under the radar. but there's only a few who really know them, but I do suggest that you check them out. They're extremely, they're actually based in Bulgaria. Yeah, so just go through the drone light shows. Drone light shows are now becoming more and more popular, and why? Because they are more environmentally friendly. They are obviously extremely impressive to watch, so they can be used for celebrations, live concerts, product launches as well. We do a lot of that, sporting events, world premiere, and also festivals. Yeah, so we are delivering these all over the world, as I've said. And what we do is we take care of the aviation approvals, the drone registration. We do the site safety, and we do the site surveys. This is also a big part to make sure that the location that we do the drone show can be done in the safest possible manner. We have extremely highly trained pilots, as well as we also train visual observers as well. So even if we go to certain locations, I'll always want to have people from the drone community to come in as visual observers and give them the experience as well, which is actually very, very helpful. Then we also do the importing, exporting logistics, or as it's known as carnet, so, because it's not import, not export, it's actually carnet, and then dealing with the project management and on-site setup. So these shows take a lot of work and a lot of planning, and even for just a 5 or 10 minute show, it's usually 3 months work. But when you get it done, of course, it's all worth it as well. Just to give you a quick look at the inspections, we are gathering the data for the telecom masts. So we fly around there, we take these photos, we put them into the platform. These are delivered to our customers. We do this in all weather conditions, obviously, obviously within reason. Obviously rain is like a big problem. This is just one example of some of the images that we would get from the urban areas as well, so they can get a good idea of all the masts on the roof. And this is good for planning, so they can actually do any future planning. You might not even have masts there, so they can imagine what the mast would look like, for example. So what we do from the planning side is obviously very, very important as well for them. And then you get to see the signal range as well. So all this is very good for visualization. So this is the kind of work that we are doing, and we are actually delivering to our customers. Quick look at the drone light shows. This is just an example of one of the shows that we've done in Taiwan. This was a 1,500 drone show. This was the biggest show that we'd ever done, and it was definitely the most impressive show that we'd ever done. Well, actually, all the shows are impressive. I'll be honest there, but this one was a bit special. And just a quick brief look at some of the operations and the teams that we work with. So we work with production teams as well as our own pilots and visual observers, It's always a lot of fun, very, very stressful, but extremely satisfying, I would say, as well. So that's there are videos. If you want to go to our YouTube channel, you can see some of the videos of some of the shows. I won't play it now because I think it's just good that we just kind of talk, and rather than show. You can look at that in your own time, but you can check out our YouTube channel. You can see that there as well. So I'm going to stop sharing now. So yeah, I look forward to your questions, and we can continue. How's that?
Thank you, Stephen. That was amazing. That really was. Yes, I think the more I listened to your presentation, I hope our audience feel the same. The more I wanted to know about what you guys do. Those drone shows look really, really exciting. It'd be good to see the YouTube videos to see how it all went. And now, just a quick one for our audience. There are a few people who are highlighting that they've got problems with audio. I think the general piece of advice from the organizers is that you may want to log out and log back in, because for most of us, the audio as well as the video is working well. So please do that and try again. And I also want to thank some of you who have already registered their questions. So I'll give a few more minutes for other people to put their questions in there as well, and then we'll open up the floor. But let me start with a question from my side to Stephen. And And just to set the scene, you talked about, Stephen, that you guys started 5 years ago and now you're quite busy. But you also said that you're likely to be more busy, or at least you would like to be more busy or busier in future. But tell me something. Where's the demand going to come from? You guys are operators. You work not just in Europe but also outside Europe. Where do you think the demand's actually going to come from? Is it going to be the more of the same, more inspections and more maintenance and more surveillance, or do you think there are other industries waiting for drones to help them as such? What's your view from an operator's perspective?
It's a great question. I think that the possibilities are pretty endless, really, and certainly when we started the company, I used to have sleepless nights where I used to sit up or lie in my bed thinking about possibilities, thinking of ideas. What can we use a drone for? What sectors? What companies? What kind of software is out there if it even exists? And I still do that, and I think that, even though we are concentrating on the telecom side when it comes to the inspections, there are also more possibilities. And this is one of the great things about the team that we have, is that they are really focused on business development. They are focused on sales. They talk with the customers and they have the ideas that, yes, we can do this, we can do that, but then we can also do this, or how about we do this? And, it's, I think I've said this before, business development is, it's key to the success of this industry, because we need to focus on building. We need to talk with industries, whether it's the oil and gas, whether it's the electricity, whether, go and talk to them. And I think at the same time as well, we need to bring them in. So, having these large events where the drone industry gets together, inviting them to come and see what we do, come and see the possibilities and how it can help, because it's easy to say, we will save you money. I mean, that's kind of the cliche to say, we will save you money. But it's more about bringing value. It's more about, the same time, what can we add to what you're already getting? How can we make things more efficient for you? So I do think that there is unlimited amount of sectors out there. You just need to go out and talk with them, and then understand your capabilities as well as your team and what you can do.
Thank you, Stephen. I've actually opened up the Q&A window. I don't know if people can see this or not, but if they can't, I will certainly pick out some questions that are relevant to what you just said, because that's very interesting. We've got a question from Nicola Eitmans from European Commission, DG Move, and very related to what you just said. Now, you do a lot of drone inspections, and the question really is, what's the motivation of your customers? Is it to reduce the cost of inspections? Is it to make the results more granular or safer, if you like? What's the motivation of the customers for doing inspections? Let's say, particularly in the telecom sector where you guys are working.
Yeah, it's more about efficiency.
Right.
It's more about efficiency. So being able to deliver the data that they want in a more efficient manner, as well as obviously adding more. So being able to, using software and giving them, like I was saying, a lot more possibilities. Yeah. You don't give them something they don't want.
Yeah.
This is why it's really good to go and talk with them. It's really, and to spend, we do workshops with the customers, and we listen to them, we talk with them, we go back, and then we set plans, and then we talk with the pilots as well. So it's very, very important to talk with the pilots in order to make sure that the data is delivered exactly the way that it should be. We don't do, for example, lots of automated flights, because a lot of it is manual, which I think is the best way to even start off with, because it makes your pilots more skilled, and they're less it's not just like, let's say pushing a button and then the drone goes up, and no, they actually fly around and actually get the data, so that we are actually giving the best quality data to them as well.
Toby Potter from UK has a very interesting question, again related to what you're just saying. what are the biggest obstacles to growth, and what would help most in overcoming them? This builds in your discussion about the business development part, but Toby, I know where Toby's coming from. It really,
yeah.
I'll let you answer that one.
I think that, well, I mean, for sure, you know, I'm going to open up a can of worms here. Open up a can of worms. You know, obviously, we are working under EASA. I mean, let's just say that if we talk about the drone light shows, okay. So we are working under EASA. We could do drone operations in let's say Netherlands, or we could do drone operations in Finland, and the whole process of doing the cross border is fairly easy. We could go and do another country. I won't say that country. Maybe I won't say that country, but we could work in other countries, and it can be a lot more difficult. It can be much slower because, the countries, although we work under EASA, a lot of those countries are still doing their own way, their own regulations, their own, and that slows down. That slows down the business. That really slows down the business. And I think that we need to make sure that all the EASA countries, all the EASA members are very much on the same page, so that there's a process that we can work together. Because when we see work coming in for a certain country, it's like a red flag. Do we want to do that? Because it's going to take more time. There's a risk that it may not happen because they may not be very happy with one thing which is on the SORA or something, yeah. So I do think that this is a real stumbling block, and I know for many other companies it is as well. It's very infuriating, and not much we can do about it right now. I'm hoping that this will improve in time, but yeah, it's a real problem.
Thank you, and I think we will go further in the technical and operational challenges just in a minute. There is another question that's coming through, and that's still keeping up with your business development idea. Now, talking to you as well as talking to many other drone operators and industry partners, there are a number of business models that are emerging. So the two that I'd like to just put forward now and see what you think about them and what your views are. One where you have particularly what you guys are doing in inspections and surveillance, where you already have a contract with your supplier, so you have a pretty good idea in terms of what the demand is and when the drones need to fly and all the rest of the stuff, so you can plan it up front, if you like. Yeah, so that's one business model, and you can provide efficient level of service there. The other model that's emerging is on-demand business model, where the requirement for, let's say, particularly whether it's in surveillance or inspection, but perhaps more likely to be in delivery of goods, let's say, both essential goods and in future, hopefully even non-essential goods. And a demand is set out by a customer for instant delivery of X, right? Now, one model is more about known demand, so you can plan things up front, so you can do more and more and more and trying to increase its efficiency. It's a bit like looking at a factory conveyor belt, which keeps going and keeps doing the same thing, and efficiency becomes the key driver. On the other hand, the on-demand service is quite different. That's more to do with agility and need. I need it now. How do you see the big drivers in setting out a business case for both types of models? Any thoughts on that?
Well, we are not really focused on the on-demand. Of course, if our customers have, let's say, an on-demand inspection service, of course, we can deal with that. But I think it's interesting when we think about on demand, and if we think of drone deliveries, and of course, I think that the medical side, I think there is a great future there. I would love to see that really be in place in urban environments. I would really I would love to see that. I know that there are ongoing trials and there are projects and whatnot, but to see drones, you know, flying and then landing on hospitals and whatnot, this I think would be, you know, even here in Finland, you know, we have lots of islands here as well, and I think that there would be a demand. There has to be some kind of a demand for, let's say, delivery services, whether it's post, whether it's medical, but of course, you know, it's all down to regulations right now as well, and no one seems to want to take that kind of leap of faith in a sense to, you know, because it takes a lot of investment, takes a lot of time. You know, there's quite, you know, we're not quite there on Sail 4 yet, for example. So, but yeah, I think that it is the future, but when I really don't know. But we do focus on, let's say, the contract, because we know the business is there. Yeah. That's where we want to focus on, because, you know, we don't have investment. We are purely service driven, and we rely purely, you know, to actually develop the business, so that we can actually set this up, and knowing that we have a future as well, and that will be hopefully one of the main, you know, aspects of the industry.
Thank you, Stephen, and a very realistic answer, no doubt, because we need to keep things practical and pragmatic. Before we leave this topic and go into the nitty-gritty details of it, an anonymous attendee has asked a question: how do you break the barrier in educating the customers so they actually appreciate they get what they pay for? You work with your, let's say, standard customers or new customers. How do you educate your customer, the current one as well as the new ones?
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. You know, it's obviously this is all new technology, and I think that social acceptance is a huge part of what we do. And I'm a great, I'm a great supporter of the social acceptance, aspect of what we do. You know, whether we and also our pilots are out there working, we also work with the public, also with the with our customers. I just heard a story the other day from Michael Michalowski. He was saying that he was at one of the customer sites, and he was sitting working, because I think they were spending a few days there. So he was sitting doing his work, and he overheard the customer having a conversation, kind of, if you want to say, around, the water cooler thing. And they were talking, and this was all being done in German. And this conversation was kind of leading into, oh yeah, the Flyby guys could do this, and it's that spending the time with the customer and as you say, educate them, trying to, really kind of showing them, the possibilities. And this is where our team are absolutely fantastic. They are such a skilled a bunch of guys that they can help the customer have their own conversations and say, well, the Flyby guys could do this, couldn't they? Could this be something they could do? And that is where the education comes in, and you work with them. So yeah, you really have to have the skills to actually speak and actually understand what it is you're doing. I always say that you can be a drone pilot. Like, I actually started off, but for me to go in to talk with the customer could be a bit more, I don't maybe understand the technical side of the telecom side, but you need to have the right people there to talk, and they will be the ones that educate and actually show the value and whatnot. And then that really goes into their heads and whatnot.
But a very good point. And I'll share at least part of my experience of working particularly with one industry, and that's the port industry. I've following the wonderful piece of work being done in the port of Antwerp, port of Hamburg, and now in Rotterdam as well, at least. And I'm sure there are others who are doing equally good. At least these individual organizations have actually integrated the drone services and drone operations as part of their operational model. And the last time I spoke to them, they were able to demonstrate in a simulated environment how at certain stage within their port operations, they have the need to go and do a safety inspection, because it's a regular thing. They need to do X number of times and so many times a week. And they were able to demonstrate how with the click of a button, they have actually vertically integrated the drone operations for inspection purposes so nicely and so neatly that And not only do they save money, therefore high efficiency, but also it makes things a lot safer. Because with inspections taking place either in the sea or up in the tall towers, manually it's far more dangerous. So really, it's going back to this question, educating the customer. But I agree with you. I can't think, it's a bit like trying to where we were many years ago in the telecom sector, is any business development or salesperson could have gone to an existing business. Now, whether that's selling burgers or it's selling chocolate or cars for that matter, I'm sure it would have been quite easy for them to sit down, understand their business operation, and then identify. And I think a lot of it is through co-creation of requirements. It's give and take and talking to the customer and understanding where the efficiencies can be brought in and where the added value can be brought in as well. A couple of closed questions, one from Arjen van der Zouwen. Are drone shows performed autonomously using software, or is there also a lot of manual work?
A bit of column A and a bit of column B. There is a lot of manual work when you're on the airfield, but in terms of the show itself, to say that you have one button that you press, in a way, yes, that is how it's done. But that takes away the magic, really, because it's very much like when you have a pilot who's sitting in the front of the airliner and you have the pre-flight checklist. I mean, every time before a show starts, it's always pre-flight, and the pilots need to have their space. I never let anyone near the pilots because they have to concentrate. And once they go through the checklist and they know that everything is safe, we know that the area is safe, that there's no one coming in, there's no manned or unmanned aviation that shouldn't be there, then the show will go. So yes, it is autonomous, but there's a lot of work that goes into that. It is quite fascinating, the whole process.
I'm sure it is. And I think Nathan Apter has another question related to drone light shows. Then, one of the main challenges of drone light shows in Europe is rather long instruction times for SORA applications. What is your experience with that? And I suppose the first question you'll ask, Nathan, is how much time have you got, mate, to be able to discuss that? But if you can use that just a few minutes to share your thoughts and help Nathan, that'd be great.
Yeah, that is a good question, Nathan, as well. It doesn't really matter if you're a drone light show company or you're just a drone inspection company. Whether you need a SORA, it will take time. It will take time. It's all over Europe. I know of many companies that have applied for SORAs, even if it's just Sail 2, and they still have a long, it can be up to a year. Sometimes I think it just depends. But when you're looking at 2 to 3 months, 4 months, that's still a long time. Now that can hinder your business. That can have an effect on your business, and so you may have sales coming in, but you can't work because you don't have your SORA. I mean, we had our SORA in Finland, from Traficom, and Traficom in Finland are I would say one of the best. Of course, I'm being biased. I'm in Finland, but having worked with many of the CAAs around Europe, I would say that Traficom are. I would say they are the best. They are very supportive. They actually enable the business here in Finland as well. You can pick up the phone and talk to them. They're very supportive. They're just a great bunch. Of course, other countries are different. And this is something that we also have to fight. I know that there are some processes in place to help this, and we could put a SORA and it could be done within a month or something, whatever. And I hope that is the case and that happens very soon. But right now, it is a stumbling block for many companies if you don't get your SORA in time.
Yeah. Thank you. And there's another anonymous attendee who's asked a question: do you fly only in VLOS or also in BVLOS? If you fly in BVLOS mode, which authorization process do you use?
We only fly in VLOS. only Flyby loss. We done one project. It was a we done a drone delivery project where we had BB loss. So we had BB loss certification for that, and we had SAIL 2, and it was a fairly, you know, I would say swift actual process to actually get it done. But mainly we only fly BLOS. You know, we have no need for BB loss at this moment, and you know in time. That, of course, that may change. It depends on the business case later on. It depends how much, you know, we want to do that kind of thing. But right now, you know, the business model we have is only for BLOS.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Chris Wade has a question for you. He says, do you have plans to enter other markets than telecoms, such as agriculture, marine, energy, and so on?
Yeah, we are, like one of the companies that I was shown there above. So we're also working within the solar as well. So we are going into there. You know, we're always open to do new things. You know, if the business is there, if the technology is there, if we have the customers, yes, we will go into. We will focus on that if that's the case. But one let's say, you know, one step at a time. You know, we try to be as realistic as possible. We don't want to outreach ourselves, because right now what we want to focus on is the customers that we have, and you know, make sure that they are looked after, because some of the projects that we have are actually quite long. So, but again, also the pilots are all, you know, it's tough getting the pilots as well. That is also an issue as well, but that's another matter.
Yeah. No, indeed. Now, Stephen, today, of course, you are operating in an environment, and you have many challenges that you've shared with us. Now, the use space regulation is out, and as we speak, a number of countries within EU are trying to prepare themselves, become ready for using use space or implementing use space and so on. As an operator, how can use space help you when it's deployed in future?
Well, you know, I think that use space would be helpful for us if we were in urban environments where there would be other, you know, air traffic, or if we were near, let's say, if we're near airports. And this is something that which we're actually doing anyway. So many of our inspections can be at airports, can be at airfields. I've done quite a few myself, where I just have to go up to the tower and you know just knock the door and say, I have to fly now, is that okay? And we just come to an agreement. But of course, if we have use space, if we were flying in those kind of environments, then it would be much more easy. I wouldn't have to chap someone's door and have a coffee with someone, you know, and then, you know, but you know, for some of our environments, yes, it would be, you know, it would be useful, it would be necessary for the safety, because many of our pilots, they sometimes get to places and maybe they find that, you know, it's locked down because there's maybe NATO things going on or something or whatever, you know. So you know, so yeah, so I mean, for us it would be beneficial for some of our operations, but certainly not all.
No. Okay, that's very interesting. I'd like to share something from my side with the members of the audience here. At Eurocontrol, and whilst working with our partners in EASA, European Commission, SORA Joint Undertaking, and also the European Defence Agency, we take a look at not just what's going on within Europe, but also outside Europe, to see if we can learn from outside as well. And one of the things that has emerged as a global risk for operators, and also perhaps for drone manufacturers and industry partners in future, is that, and you highlighted it earlier, Stephen, is that in different countries, they have their different needs and they operate in different ways. There is a risk that we may end up with regulations that are not globally harmonized. And if they're not harmonized in a way, then that will add to the cost of delivering drone operations, preparing and manufacturing drones, and delivering those services as such. You guys have worked in different parts of the world. How different have you seen things in different countries, particularly outside Europe when compared to Europe?
very different. You know, I mean, we will still maintain the level of safety that we work with. You know, we might find that in some countries, you know, I won't say who they are, but you know, in some countries that they will say, well, this kind of safety aspect doesn't have to be looked after, and we'll be quite strict on it and say, yes, it does. You know, we will still keep, you know, to our level of safety. We'll still work within our boundaries that we want to work in. I think that when when you look at manned aviation and how much is globally set, you know, so the standards are, you know, obviously across the world, that should be the same when it comes to unmanned aviation as well. And of course, we're still in the very early stages right now. We're still really in the early stages. And how many people, how many companies are going from let's say Finland over to Asia or whatever? There's not many. So it's not really, it hasn't been highlighted so much, let's say. And of course, we are aware of it. And these are discussions that we have to have. These are talks that we should be talking, you know, let's say globally or even internally, you know, obviously within EASA, so that they know, so that they understand what we have to go through, so that because we do kick back a little bit. And then you get obviously some countries where they're a lot more stricter as well, you know, so which of course is really, really good, but we still have our, we still have the way that we work, which of course matches that, but you can see that they are a lot more tighter when it comes to regulations, you know. But yeah, and I think we have a long way to go, and I think I'll be retired by the time that that there's some let's say harmony set through let's say throughout the world.
No, thank you for sharing that. And certainly we see that. I myself have been part of the European delegation. We visited Tokyo last week, and only to see how they're progressing in their view, because they've got Expo coming up in 2 years' time in Osaka. And whilst it was very interesting to compare with Europe, see where they are in their preparation, and no doubt they've got their own challenges, but there are many challenges that were common. And one of the things they wanted to learn from Europe and European delegation was our regulations and how we're going about implementing those regulations and such. And whilst we also have a lot of distance to cover, I think we are making progress, no doubt. About that. What keeps you up at night now, Stephen? What's the thing that bothers you the most in terms of your business as an operator?
It's been able to meet the demands of the regulators. That is one of the one of the main things, especially I would say with the drone light shows. That is the main one. I mean, like I said earlier, having the harmony between all the member states. This can be very, very stressful because there has been 1 or 2 times where we haven't been able to get the permission to fly in time, and obviously you might set demands with the customer to make sure that everything is right. So if we don't have the understanding from the CAA to say that we need this to happen by then, because doing a drone light show, there's a big logistic part there, like we're showing in my slides there. It's not just a case of rolling up and just flying the drones. You have to get those drones imported. That all takes time. So all the planning. So you can even have drones there, and sometimes you may not even have the permission to fly because they haven't got it in time, and it might come in at the 11th hour, which is fine. But the stress level goes up. It's very, So those kind of things do keep us, awake, and it's something that we just have to work with right now. We know it will get better at some point. We know it will improve, and I do hope that each of those countries can come together and we can have. Please look at Finland the way Finland does it. I do recommend you look at Finland. Traficom, please. But no, it is a challenge.
Well, what do you think needs to be done then to improve that? Is there anything that we as a community can do to, I don't know, let's say assist the CAA guys to expedite the process of authorization, or is there, or do we need a particular type of technology to help them with it. Well, what's needed? Is it lack of education? Is it lack of awareness, lack of technology, or is it simply lack of resources for all we know?
I think it's a mix of them all. I think, Munish, it's a real mix of them all, and you know, some of the CAAs, you know, not to say that they don't recognize drones as part of what they do. I think there's many of the CAAs out there that are just focused on manned aviation. And of course they have to deal with drones, and they may not see drones as being important, and of course that comes down to lack of resources as well, and as you say, lack of education. And I don't mean that in a bad way. This industry is growing. It is growing fast, and if you don't have the staff, if you don't have the resources, then it makes things a lot more difficult. But I think also having technology, I think if we had a kind of centralized platform where we could, put in our order, if we want to fly in a certain place, that would also be a lot more helpful as well. But I think that the harmonize, there are certain countries that demand certain things, especially in EASA. There are certain countries, and some of it I think is quite ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. I'll be honest, because in some countries they don't.
Right. Yeah. No, that's very interesting. So perhaps there are some short-term things that can be done to expedite the process, and it's all about trying to square this round peg, if you like, which is that if there was a lot more demand for business and the demand community was kicking around for expediting drone operations, perhaps, and also lobbying the governments on making things quicker and faster, that might actually even help the CAAs to get more resources to be able to do things quickly. Because I work with some of those, and I find they work very hard and they do the best they can, and they are indeed doing, under the circumstance and the resource levels they have, they're doing an amazing job. So perhaps it's always a flow that we need to maintain. If there was more demand, because at the end of the day, what's a drone? Drone is a means of achieving something. And I go back to where you started your presentation, is that there's more need to develop business and to try and talk to customers to see how they can expedite and make things more efficient in their operations. The more we can do there, the more the demand goes up. The more the demand goes up, the more lobbying pressure on trying to expedite things. And that hopefully helps everyone to get the right resources and to move forward in the right sort of direction.
Yeah. I think one of the most common things is that that we say is it's like a chicken and egg.
Yeah, it is. It is chicken and egg.
It's like a chicken and egg. So you can't have one without the other, in a sense, so you have to meet the demands. But then, of course, you have to have the demands, and you have to have the infrastructure in place. So it is really tough.
And I'm happy to say that here in Europe, I think we are ultra critical of ourselves, and we do push ourselves a lot. But I can also share my thoughts, and hopefully my colleagues who are also logged in now would share my thoughts, that the rest of the world is definitely looking at Europe, because we are moving at probably the fastest pace. If I compare ourselves to the United States or to the Pacific or Middle East or everywhere else, I think we are making some very good progress, thanks to the leadership of the policymakers, the regulators, the drone operating community, and the service providers, no doubt. There is a question. We only got a few minutes left, and then we need to wrap up. There's a question from another anonymous attendee about your drone shows, and I'll read it out. With drone shows of major events, are you able to share if there is a weather modification involved? For example, China made no secret about weather modification when they hosted the Olympics. Swarms are susceptible to elements. Would you be able to speak about that and share your views, please?
Well, of course, we are monitoring the weather constantly, and if you are a drone operator, you will spend your time glued to satellites and whatnot, and that's something which I do. I'm very often known as a weatherman when we're on drone operations, because I'm always looking to see if there's a window or what's coming in. The drones, obviously cannot fly in rain. Okay, just like anything. And obviously certain drones will have a certain amount of wind resistance as well. So we always know our limits. We always know what we can and we cannot do. So we will always do like a wind test, before a show, so we can check the wind levels, so that we know the actual limits of them as well. And as I say, we're watching the weather constantly. It's just, I mean, if you're in the Middle East, then it's fine. There's often, there's no rain, but you just have to watch the wind. But at the same time, you're also looking at your environment. So you could be in places where you might have, let's say, radio jamming and also GPS jamming as well. That has happened, and that's a whole other issue as well. But so and of course space weather in that way. So if you're having, let's say if you have solar winds as well, that can also have an effect. So we watch everything.
Yeah, thanks. Nikolai Eidmans from DG Move has another question about light shows. Any recycling of drone swarm technology in other sectors?
Oh, I know that there's, I know that there are, swarm, let's say research going on. I know that, the VTT here in Finland are doing a project called Fireman, which they are, actually monitoring forest fires as well. I know that Hanno will be very happy that I'm mentioning this for him. But I think that, swarms are, that is the future at some point. It definitely is the future. I mean, obviously right now, the way that we do for drone light shows is very, very controlled, and their environments that are actually safe. But there are lots of different ways you could use them.
I think last one or two questions, then I'll stop. Jaap Hattenboer from UMCG Ambulance Service says, I suppose the main problem is that both aviation and all other stakeholders are still very unfamiliar with this new technology. So building trust and comfort might be the biggest challenge. I think we will all agree with that.
I mean, absolutely. Social acceptance is a huge part. I think I mentioned this earlier on, and whether we're working with the the air ambulance. I know that we have lots of discussions with FinHems here in Finland, and then we also have the police here in Finland as well. The police here in Finland have one of the biggest drone departments actually in the world. We don't have, let's say, police helicopters. We only have drones here, but yeah, social acceptance is a huge thing.
Excellent. I think we've come to that stage where I'm going to have to wrap up, because we've got 3 minutes to the closure of this webinar. First of all, thank you, Stephen, for sharing your views openly, transparently, and informally. That's what makes webinars like these more for fun, I suppose. But just to wrap up, I think you've given us and our members of audience a view from a drone operator side. And I think everyone will agree that there's a lot of pressure on drone operators. They need to, on one hand, earn their living to be able to survive and all that. At the same time, they're operating in an environment which is still being built. The ecosystem is being built, no doubt, on a daily basis, weekly and monthly basis. One of the key things that you highlighted in terms of challenges are to get the regulations authorized, or the CAs authorized the operations quickly. We looked at some of the aspects that might help the CA organizations, such as providing more resources to them, the use of technology, and also indeed, no doubt, creating more business development in existing and new industries, because the more business we generate, the more obvious it becomes to everyone that the drones can provide value to society. And if they can provide value to society, then the policymakers and the regulators and the investors and the industry partners will all rally around to try and make things a lot better. I'm very thankful to all the various questions that our members of audience have asked. They were all very good questions, and they looked at various aspects of a drone operation. So thank you all very much, and thanks for keeping things lively. I hope that those who had technical problems were able to solve it, and also big thanks to others who didn't ask questions, but I hope that they were able to learn from a real experience from a drone operator who's operating not just in Europe, but actually across the world. And I think we need more of this. So there's cross-fertilization of experience, and there's also learning from each side, as all that stuff. I can only wish you the very best of luck, Stephen, to you and your colleagues. I hope you do well, and I'd like to wish everyone a very good morning or afternoon, wherever you're logging in from, and have a great day. We look forward to seeing you again in other webinars and physical meetings as well. Have a great day, guys, and goodbye.
Thank you.